stepped away from my career and I thought, I care too much about the world to be that artist that gets to their middle of their career and says, oh, I forgot to live. So I said, don't call me, I'll call you. I am the circuit break in their monotony. Last year, I was like, how do I bottle this up and turn this into a business? These no's that I cared so much about when I was 22, I couldn't give two flying flips about now because of my perspective change.
Welcome to Mission Activated, where we bring you the stories of individuals who've awakened to their true purpose and are living a life of passion, impact, and alignment. I'm Aveline Clarke, your host, and I believe that when you're on mission, everything falls into place. Here, we share the journeys of those who've discovered their unique path and embraced their soul's calling. It's not just about making money in life and in business, it's about making a difference, living on purpose, and inspiring yourself and others along the way. Let's get to it. My next guest is the lovely, exciting Jacinda Patty. She is Australian-based and she's an artist. What is she an artist of? Well, comedy, actually. She created and produced her own sellout shows across Australia, and she's continued to create. She's been doing this for 25 years on stage, knowing how to speak, and she created a one-woman show called Tinder Cindy at the Sydney Fringe Festival in 2022. She won a prestigious NIDA Emerging Producer Award. She has a deep understanding of how to connect to audiences and people, and she talks to me about how that has shaped the next part of her journey. She's a bright spark, she's energetic, she's fun, creative, and this conversation was awesome. Enjoy Jacinda Patty. Hello, Jacinda. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. You know, I've been in a little hiatus for the last 2-3 months, and you're my first recording after that break. So I'm super excited to get back into recording, and I'm so grateful and delighted that it's you that gets to join me in my recording studio today. So thank you.
It is so excited to chat. It's going to be great.
You know what is really exciting about you in particular is the journey or the path that you've been on. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of different people from all walks of life. I can't say that I've had a performer before on my podcast. So it excites me, and I'm sure the audience is going to love this as well, to get a sense of, you know, what made you who you are today, and they're going to hear about this story, and you know that the artistic expression and creativity that comes out of you is so refreshing and exciting. So I just have to say I'm really excited about this conversation.
It's a part of me. There's no off switch, I tell people.
Whereabouts do you live, Jacinda?
I'm in Sydney.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. It's good being in the same time zone. I have guests from all over the world, so I always like to ask, you know, share with us, because we have listeners from all over the world as well. Mm-hmm. Sydney, Australia. How's the weather there today? Cold?
I am looking. It's cold. I've got my woolly on, but I'm actually looking at beautiful blue sky. So that's nice. We've been getting some rain, and I didn't realize how weather dependent I was till the last few weeks. After this, I'll be jumping out and standing in the sun, that's for sure.
Yes, we have had a lot of cold weather here on the east coast of Australia. So I'm hearing you, and I too can see blue skies out my window. So it's a good day. All right, I am so excited. Let me ask you as an introductory question, who do you serve at the moment, Jacinda, and how do you serve people?
In my business?
Could be anything.
Well,
This is the G-rated version of conversation. Just putting that out there, by the
I had
way.
a great night last night.
Yeah.
I'm single. I'm new business owner. No. How do I serve? I serve joy. I serve entertainment, and I honestly think I've been doing it from the moment I came out. I have video evidence because my grandmother thought it was a good idea to document my whole life on video. But I'm that to my friends and my family. I'm entertainment. I am the circuit break in their monotony. And the amazing thing is I've actually last year I was like, how do I bottle this up and turn this into a business? I was like, these people, I said to my friends have been listening to my lectures and my joy and my stories for 20, 35-year friendships. I'm actually seeing one of my best friends today who was put in my crib the day I was born. And if she's still listening to my craziness and my entertainment and my joy, then I must be doing something right. But so to my people, that's how I serve them. To my clients in my new business, I encourage them to step into that role and find it within themselves. So it's a very liberating time for me at the moment to go through my realizations. So
we're going to get more into that. And just hearing you speak about joy and how you light people's lives up it's just, I think we're all attracted to that. There's this warmth, there's this glow around you. And when we hear about people who are the circuit breaker, the one that entertains, that brings that joy, it's like, oh, we want more of that, because life is hard, and you look
serious.
Too serious, and it can be really stressful, and especially in the kind of world and that we live in, and what we only have to turn on our phones and TVs and we can see a lot of darkness, and we don't want to be in the darkness. We want the light. So you're the light. And I want to tap into more of the light in this conversation. So I always like to start with the journey. This is so important for me to get to know our guests, but it's so important for us to just, understand what makes you you. And I'd love you to share with me and ask the listeners today, what's been the journey that you've been on that's brought you to where you are today?
I often, and this year I've said it many times, I'm like, I don't think I could reinvent myself another time or see another fork in the road. I envy people, but then at the same time I don't, that have that linear life because I just the ah, the the journey that has brought me here is one, and I think I said it this morning, one of audacity, but it honestly is a testament to my parents. It has to be. I keep trying to figure it out. I mean, I have my innate nature. I don't think last year I tried to do one thing and I was bored and I didn't feel alive. So I think it's a combination of my nature, and my privilege and my security with my family that has allowed me. I was never told no. I was never told no, and I curated my own path from a very young age. And as I said, my privilege, I was able to say to my mum, I want to do tap dancing this term. And she would say, okay, I want to do the 3 performance groups this term, Mum. Okay. I don't want to do tap dancing anymore this term. from a very young age, I had those interactions and those experiences of creating what I wanted, and not being told what I should have. And in saying that, it's kind of just created the non-linear path that has been, how I've got here, which is nowhere near average or like people don't understand it. I don't understand it half the time, to be honest. It's yeah, I can't necessarily explain how I went from being a dancer to an actress to a puppeteer to traveling the world solo for 2 years, to then joining circus school at 28 and finding comedy and clowning, and then deciding, well, if I'm going to do this, then I have to become a solo producer and produce my own thoughts onto stage. And without the support and not being told, no, you can't, I wouldn't have had the freedom to think I could.
Mm.
So it's just been a building block of gathering of information and people. Like, I've been in so many different industries and so many different spaces, from corporates to hospitality to the performing world. I've been on so many different stages, so many behind the camera, in front of the camera, on the stage, behind the stage, with kids, adults.
So tell me, this is incredible. For the listeners, this is, I think, would be quite refreshing and quite interesting because, like I said, I've not had someone who's had the kind of journey and experiences on the show that you have. So tell me what drew you to those things, and can you tell us more about the different things that you've done?
I don't even think it something I say that I knew who I was at 12, at 8. And I keep trying to answer that question for myself as well as trying to articulate it for you and your listeners. All I can say is that I knew who I was and I was comfortable with who I was at a very young age, at a time when in high school people were experiencing so many different things. I said what I wanted, I did what I wanted already. And from that, I look back and I'm like, did I really want to be a dancer? Why did I like dancing so much? And I think I just loved being part of a team, a group, coming together on stage. And I say there's this one moment where in my journals, as an 8-year-old, I saw Nikki Webster fly across the stadium in the 2000 Olympics. And I'm thinking I'm getting my ages confused. I think I was 10. But the effect that one person had on millions of audiences, I just thought to myself, I am going to create art with meaning that affects people. That was it. The rest that followed was my desire to change and evolve and not be linear and just go where I wanted to. The childhood dream was, LA, was Hollywood. I say, I always wanted to go to Hollywood. But what I've learned recently is maybe that Hollywood, or that essence of that, 8-year-old's dream of Hollywood, it's not the place, it's what that represents. And, you know, I knew I was in dance college before I finished my leaving school certificate, and I had the best year of my life dancing 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, acrobatics, acting, dancing, ballet, jazz, tap, hip hop, all the things. All I grew up knowing was hard work. You cannot get a better pirouette unless you do more pirouettes. That was it. There was nothing was handed to you in the dance industry. And back in the 90s, it was like chaos. When I landed in that industry and became a professional dancer, I realized you can't actually go for auditions if you're under 5 foot and 5'4". I was like, right. And my little muscly legs weren't really what they wanted. And for me, it was still this, okay, I can visually give a story and entertainment, but I still wasn't using my words at that stage. So I found an acting course, and it was a screen acting course. And it was like, this is what I'm made to do. This is easy. This is like walking down the street. It's being human in a different way. And because I was a theatre performer and a dance performer, I was so used to reaching the back of the theatre. There's something powerful about bringing all that energy in and putting it into a square, which I loved. But again, waiting for the auditions, being in a space that the acting industry 12, 15 years ago didn't want a curly-haired, vibrant, Mediterranean background person. They didn't. I didn't feel comfortable, and I didn't want to wait. And at that stage, although I knew I was really good and loved doing this thing that would have landed me, closer to the dream, I was craving that applause. It's the only way I can explain it is I needed that instant gratification that the audience was affected. So I had the opportunity to become a puppeteer, and I leaped at it. And I toured around Australia for 3 years as a dinosaur puppeteer. And I worked with the amazing company Earth. And, I took theatre to kids that had never seen theatre before. We put shows on in the middle of Queensland, which is literally red dirt. For those of you who are not aware, we put a show on a tennis court for children for 20 kids in a rural town, that those 20 kids were the only 20 kids in the town. And it was the desire to be so present in this ability to affect people through art that I just kept following the work and that applause. And I went and I became a salsa dancer. And in between working, I had a love for my industry, and I had an equal love to travel the world and experience as many cultures and countries that I could. And it was equal. It was like I did not want to miss out on living for my art. I did not want to be a jaded artist. I did not want to be a consumed creative that misses out on the beautiful world that we live in. So I think I fought myself in my 20s, and I danced between these two loves, or what I knew. I grew up listening to stories of my grandparents. They traveled here on boats. They used to go traveling around the world and come back and show me the videos. My mum went backpacking through Europe and hitchhiking through New Zealand. I didn't have parameters on no, you can't. On so many aspects. And it's this combination of this travel and these career choices that led me to different different paths. I did feel dumb at one point. So as you're doing auditions, it's quite mundane. I think of, I think of people that have gone for one job or three jobs in their career. We hear no on a regular basis. And I tell you, you've got to create some thick skin for that to be your common existence in life. And I'm back in the acting world now. And it's so interesting that these no's that I cared so much about when I was 22, I couldn't give two flying floops about now because of my perspective change and my experience. To me, those no's and that job that they didn't let me have seemed like it was the be all and end all of my existence. So as a dinosaur puppeteer traveling around Australia, salsa dancing at corporate events around Sydney, dance teaching when not on tour across, the beaches of Sydney, hospitality working in between because I always needed to keep getting money to make sure that I had money for the overseas trip, the new country on my beacon of I want to see what they do in their world. And I blame my grandmothers and my parents for that zest. But it got to a point where I was 26. My career hadn't blossomed into the Hollywood I thought it would have been and what I wanted it to be. I didn't get the amazing job that, gave me the status of being called an artist or an actress. And I was single. And I thought, I can't wait to do something with someone that necessarily I don't know when they're coming. Or I got sick of waiting for this career and trying and banging my head at a door that seemed like I was never going to get a yes, or I was never going to get to that Hollywood moment. So I stopped everything. I stepped away from my career and I thought, I care too much about the world and about living to be that artist that gets to their middle of their career and says, oh, I forgot to live and see the other side of, not being in the biz. So I said, don't call me, I'll call you. Thank you, goodbye. I'll let you know when I'm back in town. Great working for you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Called my friends, said, hey, if anyone wants to see me, I gave them 24 hours notice. I said, if anyone wants to see me, I'll be at this pub, this time. I've got a one-way ticket around the world. Sort your own problems out now. I'm out. And I packed my bag, 14 kilos, and I went for 2 years around the world solo. And it was hard. It was lonely. It was amazing. I lived 10 different lives in those 2 years. I ticked 20 people's lists off. What I love about those 2 years is I went away and then I came back and there were travel influencers on Instagram being famous and getting money for what I just did. But I was too busy off my phone, hanging in hammocks, talking to the locals, hanging out in the streets, going to the small towns, avoiding. I could write a book about avoiding what you're meant to do in scenic destinations. But just being and living and observing and meeting. And it did get to a point where I was standing in front of beautiful monuments in their own right, and I wasn't wowed. And I thought to myself, this is a disrespect to these monuments. And I tell you, it's really hard to look at monuments in a different way once you've been inside of a pyramid. It is it became really difficult. And I thought to myself, this isn't what it was 2 years ago. I've got to go home. I've got to go back. But the hard thing was then, I wasn't I didn't feel like I was an artist. I was a traveler. And I had an identity existential crisis. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not a performer. I've been sitting in hammocks drinking cocktails for 2 years. What? So my mum tried to coax me home and she sent me an article. Apparently she's been trying to get me to do a uni degree my whole life. Lovely lady. She applied for me to go to uni just in case I changed my mind. But there was a bachelor degree in circus arts. And she's like, great, this is going to get her home. She said she knows me well. It did get me home. I did not get into the bachelor degree, but I got into the certificate for. So again, to my friend's disappointment, I landed, and a month later, I moved to Melbourne. And at 28, I joined at circus school. I trained for 4 days a week with 16-year-olds. It's I was mother hen. I'd had a 10-year career in the arts and I was mother hen trying to fit into an institution. It was painful but equally amazing because of the opportunities and the training and the eye-opening experience into this other physical side of the arts that I hadn't even considered. And I quickly found clowning. It's like, what? You can clown and roller skate, and you can clown and fly on a trapeze, and you can clown and stand on someone's head? What? This is like me walking down the street, but you're telling me I can do it on a stage and get paid? What? So I found clowning, and then I found comedy. And I tried at the end of that year to get into the bachelor degree. Again, institute. NIDA didn't want me. The National Institute of Circus Arts definitely doesn't want me at 28. So it ignited an anger I have never felt before. I was sick of hearing you don't fit here, or you are not tall enough, you are not simple enough, you are not whatever, you're too big, you're too small, you're too muscly, you're too short, whatever it was, you're too intellectual, whatever it is that you've heard in your life. And I went, right, if I am going to be an artist, then I need to create what's in here and show the world. Because until this stage in my career, nobody knew what was going on in here. I felt like nobody understood me. My family just got used to like the chaos that I was. And, my brother is this genius brain. And I was just, the one over here entertaining everybody. But nobody was hearing what was in my head and what I knew true to be what I could be and share. So I created a production company and I produced a 4-woman show called Boxed In Sideways. And it was beautiful. Absolutely stunning. It fused circus, dance, music, and acting into one Spiegel tent journey of life. And it entertained audiences. They laughed. They oohed and ahed and spoke about it after. I did it. But I didn't know how to continue doing that without any money. I'd just been a student for a year. I was living on $30 a week to feed myself. And, my friends are all getting married, onto their second kids. And here I am. I joined the audacity to join circus school at 28 and reinvent my career. I realized really quickly that this was cool to have a whole audience affected by my storytelling. And I thought, right, I can't pay 3 other artists. I don't know how to do that yet. And until I figure that out, I can just do me. I always thought I had to go to NIDA to be able to play a split character or a one-woman show or, no. You just need a good little experience of life and a ton of skills in the arts. But I went on to create my first one-woman show, and the night my four-woman show, Boxed in Sideways, went up, I applied for my one-woman show to go in Adelaide Fringe Festival. And it was just like, I had a girlfriend doing that application. I had another girlfriend doing me like a promo for the next day to keep selling tickets in the Melbourne Fringe Festival. And then I had my mum cooking us lunch. So I was like, we don't have time to eat, Mum. You need to feed us. And with that four-woman show, I created what I call my brain's trust. I've been a solo producer, a solo artist, and a solo business owner for the last 15 to 20 years. But I wouldn't be able to do it without my brain's trust. And they know who they are, and they know how much they help me, and I thank them for it. And I give them that entertainment and that joy in return. They stick around. But it was this solo show that, from my angle, felt like me just saying, I'm yelling at you, and this is really interesting, and I'm really interesting, and you need to start freaking listening to me because I got lots to say. That's what it felt like in my head. It was less invasive and more entertaining. All I wanted to do was stand on a stage and talk about men. I thought, bugger this. I also made the decision not to use nudity as a solo female artist to prove my point. It was words that I had stuck in my head. It was words that were written down in my journals. It was my journals that allowed me to create, is where I found the words for that solo show. And I took people on this journey of Cindy in Safety Banana and how she traveled the world finding and losing love. Such a relatable topic. And it just made me so happy because it was my passion. It was my travel. It was the other passion of my life. And I fused them. And I did a workshop. Oh, no, I did a competition. And we got judged. And one of the ladies said to me, oh, you might want to think about what you're doing because you're standing on stage you're a woman standing on stage talking about men. And I thought, sorry, is that a question? Or, because that's exactly what I'm doing. And it was those interactions with this authority that was questioning my art and trying to put my art in a box. I was like, really? And not only that, the guy next to her then said, you talk about in the show how much you love family, but you actually then pay them out a lot. I told my mother this, and she turned around. She said, I told you we should have come. You told me not to come. I said, I could have told him straight what it means. She goes, I would have introduced him to your father. Case in point. I pay my fare. My dad is the reason why I am so good at comedy. The shade that man throws and has thrown across the dinner table to this day is where I've learnt my timing, my precision, my silence until you kill with the just the right amount. Just he's a silent extraordinaire, that man. And my mum's vigor. It's just, I just couldn't comprehend what they were trying. I was like, that's exactly what I'm doing. Why are we trying to, I don't know. Anyway, I gave up on trying to do competitions. And I continued to tour that show. And in 2020, I took it to Adelaide Fringe Festival. And I got my first 5-star review as a solo producer, creator, writer, director, marketer, sales assistant. And, you know, I'd secured podcast, I'd secured radio interviews, I'd done my own PR. That 5-star review meant so much. It meant the ball was rolling. It was working. The momentum, I'd created it. I was doing shows to 2 people, 5 people sometimes. A 45-minute show with 2 people as your audience? Ooh. Trust me, I don't want to go back to that, but it grows. It makes you grow. That's for sure. Our lovely COVID put a halt in all of that. I'd ordered 500 condoms that I labeled safety bananas. And I was on my way to Melbourne Fringe for 2 weeks. It was, I was producing a tour, an Australian tour of a show. And I'd got the momentum rolling and it was guillotined. And it was gut-wrenching. And I then had to flip and make decisions like everybody in COVID. And, I was so lucky that when I got bored earlier in my 20s, I became a personal trainer. I thought, right, I'm going to train people and fitness and get paid for spruiking health because it's what I do to my friends every other time that I'm not entertaining them about my single antics. And I became a personal trainer. So in COVID, I did this 180 flip. And again, my brother is my business coach and he called me. I lost the performing industry. The gym shut down at 12 p.m. He called me at 6 p.m. and said, what are you going to do? I said, what do you mean I'm going to do? What am I going to do? I've just produced a show. The world's ending. I'm just going to put my feet up and have a glass of wine. He goes, no, what are you going to do? I said, exactly what I just told you. I'm going to have a day off. And he goes, what are you going to do? Okay. I said, right. I'm a joyous being and the world is ending and people need joy in their lounge rooms. Let's take fitness to their lounge rooms. He said, great. There's lots of people that have just started taking their laptops home and they hate their jobs and now they're sitting in a room by themselves, hating their jobs. I said, great. I'll start Monday. I'm going to go drink my wine and put my feet up. I ended up telling my friend the idea. She goes, great. Why wait till Monday? What is with you two? Can a girl have a break between her fork, right? When a fork appears, you take a break. No, not with these two. So she goes, you can do it on Friday. I'm not tech savvy. I had no idea about online training. I'd barely been on a Zoom call. I lived on a stage. Right. Cool. I asked the questions. I sent the emails. I reached out to my audience. I had people from Germany, from Ireland, from all parts of Australia join this first Friday session. And on Monday, I had a new business and it was profitable from day dot. And it ran for 3 years. 4 years, it evolved into just an offline platform. Cindy Sweats. So I just morphed this character, this solo traveler, safety banana, Cindy in her world. I just kept it going because that's what I knew how to do. And I performed. I got up 5 mornings a week for 3 years. I think I cancelled 1 morning. And I had mothers and daughters from across the world join each other. Sons, mother, we were in Mexico and we would meet. And I may have been crying that morning, devastated that I was locked in my home in Melbourne. And I would put my glasses on and I would pretend like there were no tears. And I would rally everyone up, get them to exercise and send them on their day. What I didn't realize at the end of those 3 years, I was acting every single morning. I thought I hadn't been, well, it was 2 years, then I decided to write a second one-woman show. We'll get to that in a minute. But for that year, I was performing and I could do it with ease because I am a performer. You know, a lot of trainers were like, how do you give them the value? I'm like, they're getting more value than they bargain for. I learnt business. My brother lifted a hoop and said, jump, and I jumped. I learnt apps. I learnt how to write emails. I was learning it a little bit as a producer, but this took it to a whole new level. I was managing people. I was retaining clients. I was adapting with whatever the hell the world was throwing at us. I changed that offer so many times. It just was all my skills I'd learnt as a performer on the road were coming into play in a different sense. And the moment we came out of the shit at the end of 2021, I decided that it was a good idea to go back into a door, lock it, and isolate myself for 6 months and write a second one-woman show. It was the most counterintuitive thing I've ever done in my life. I was broken. COVID broke me as a human. A traveling extrovert, people person who loves the world and entertains them was given a curfew. And I then decided to stand in a room by myself and write a show. But I needed to write this show. I needed to know if I could affect an audience a third time, if I could get a standing ovation a third time, if I could bring my family's story to the stage. Because what I realized was it was those stories and my history that is what I want to bring and share to the world. And I was locked away from my grandmother's and I was single. So what better story to tell than Tinder Cindy, the one-woman show about Cindy moving in with her grandmother, her great-grandmother. And I played the switch character and I entertained audiences and I made them laugh. And I produced a 3-city tour and sold out my Sydney Fringe Festival in 2022. And I won an Young Emerging Producer Award. And I gained back my identity as an artist. And it wasn't until that standing ovation of the opening night of Tinder Cindy that I was like, I can do this. I can tell stories that affect people. And they listen. But it was not enough. Show number 5 at Sydney Fringe Festival, I had this let go and realization that I didn't need the applause anymore. I almost didn't want it. I was doing that show, so 2-character show. I developed a dialogue in my head that was commenting on the audience's reactions in real time whilst I was delivering 2 characters. I was saying to myself, why didn't you laugh at that? They laughed last night. Of course you fucking laughed at that. That's hilarious. Oh, you laughed at it? I'll give you more. I'll give you more. Let's try this. This was the dialogue going on in my head whilst I was delivering a show. I was like, what does this mean? Am I bored up here? What's going on? And I realized it was the development of the story, and it was the producing. It was the getting this to the people that I enjoyed the most. Combine that experience and the recognition of being an emerging producer, I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't that anymore. And I think you say your story and your history and it's, I have had the most beautiful life and the privilege of being able to act on those feelings. Now, I think it comes with the fact that I have support, definitely, but also I don't value money. In my heart, I believe in my being, I believe I will land in a position where I don't have to be a struggling artist. But I didn't want to miss out on living to go and get the job that gave me the money to have the stability that I wanted or that I crave and that I've craved for 20 years. But geez, I've had like the experiences and the journey just outweighs any of that. And the amazing thing is that I went on last year to do a podcast. I turned Safe to Banana, the traveling stories. I just wanted people I realized I wanted people to tell their stories. I wanted to facilitate, which is quite funny that I'm on here telling mine, but I wanted, the way I traveled, I did not travel with a lonely planet. Goodbye, lonely planet. I spoke to people and I asked them what they thought about locations. And if I met 3 people that told me about the same location, then I'd go. Great. We're going there. And then I'd make my decision. And then I'd share that decision with the next people and the next travelers. And it was that, that ability to be able to do that landed me in the several different universes I have passed through. And, this was the hardest one, coming out at 34. I felt like I didn't really have an operational production company. My Cindy Sweat's online personal training was changing, and I didn't want to change with the fitness industry to do what I had to do to keep that alive. It was taking away from where I wanted to be. I was still, I was working in my friend's bakery to talk to people, drink coffee and eat croissants all day. It was great. And, at 34, not really having an identity, but having had an amazing life, but not having a partner, but wanting kids. But all of a sudden, this time pressure capsule engulfed me. And, I went on the journey of egg freezing and it went horribly wrong, which is a topic I could talk about for hours. But it was my journey that I had to go on. And, I pretty much wrote a stand-up comedy show in that waiting room once I woke up with my 2 measly little eggs and 7 keyholes in my abdomen because the surgery went wrong. I had every single nurse in there laughing. I was like, right, stuff this. I'm writing a one-woman show, a stand-up show, and I am creating an online business and I am taking frickin' control. Because I tried to take control and the universe won't even let me take control of that. So I was like, I'm coming at ya. And at this point, I was working for my brother in his startup business selling advisor tech. Because why not throw another hat on the mix? They appointed a professional clown to front their sales team. And I had to talk to advisors and try and tell them why our tech would save them time and money. It was great. It was an amazing experience. And it was the last piece to the puzzle that I needed to create where I've landed today. The difference with this business now and where I am and what I'm so excited about is that I wasn't forced into it. I let it come to me. And after I produced the podcast, that was another hey, I can do this thing. Tick. I was like, I'm doing another thing. I don't know what it is, but we're going to wait and we're going to see, and it will encompass everything that is me. And I remember thinking our world fell apart in many different ways last year, but I remember thinking, how do I teach people to be me? How do I bottle that up? How do I teach people to walk into a room like Jacinda Patty? How do I teach people to have the audacity to, buy 500 condoms and want to throw them at the audience? You do roller skates and eat a banana, roller skate, dance on stage and eat a banana and do, talk about her love life. How do I impart that and what that feels like on other people? And through working with my brother, I was constantly encouraging him to be the boss, the leader. And I was setting him up for sales meetings and injecting this joy and this Jacinda into his genius and what he was delivering. And I had the opportunity to help a few friends who were in business with their keynotes. And the great thing about keynotes and sales preparation, and, I'd written a script on how to sell the advisor tech. And the great thing about that is that that's the producing bit. That's the fun bit. That's the bit I'd identified that I enjoyed. And people were coming to me for that help. And then I was teaching them things that I know as a professional artist that they had no idea about. They hadn't even thought about. So I gave my friend some clowning advice on how to engage with her audience, on how to walk onto that stage. And a clown just reacts from an audience, from what the audience is giving them. and level with them. And she just went crazy. She tried it. It worked. She was buzzing. And from there, I helped her with her big keynote to like 120 AMP marketers. And she shone. She commanded that stage ridiculously. And the testament is the questions that she received at the end of that keynote. We were both blown away because she was so sure and rehearsed and focused in what she was delivering and how she was standing on that stage, that the new business Command Your Presence was created.
And here you are.
Here I am.
If you're loving this conversation and want to dive deeper into purposeful work, then it's time to thank the 6-Star Leaders community for making this episode possible. The 6-Star Leaders are a group of purpose-driven business owners committed to doing business differently by embracing their unique genius and skills to make a real impact. It's a space for learning, growth, and truly becoming empowered in everything that you do. If you're ready to discover your own 6th star, go to bit.ly/6starcommunity-intro and book a chat to learn more. We look forward to seeing you.
It's so calming, this business. It's so clear. And it is an absolute pleasure to be building a business that doesn't need to get up in 3 days, or I haven't created a deadline for a festival. I'm just listening to what people need and want and how my 25 plus years experience, my bag of tricks, I've got it. And I'm here ready to find what works for my clients. It's not carbon copy. I'm not going to teach you to be me. You can't be me. I don't even know how to be me, but I'm going to help you be you and find what it is that you resonate with.
There's so many questions and things I'd love to tap into, but I just, the visual you just gave me then, you've got your bag of tricks. If you were to write a label on the outside of that bag of tricks, what's the label say? Apart from bag of tricks. How would you describe your bag of tricks?
I want to say your history, but it's me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all me.
Mm.
All of it. And you have one. That's the thing. No one can take your freaking bag of tricks away from you. And that's what I had to learn. It took me 15 years to figure it out. Nobody can take that bag from you. You've created it. Your experiences, your journey, your interactions, your career choices. Whether you think they're good, bad, whether you've made it, whether you've not. The biggest thing for me was actually acknowledging that I've done some amazing things. I wasn't owning my bag of tricks. I wasn't owning my history.
When did you come to that moment where you did?
To be honest, I think it was about 4 weeks ago when, I went global with this business, and I sat in a meeting with American Express and went with accountants and went across 3 countries, India, Singapore, and Australia. And that shocked me. It took me 2 weeks to get over that. Not only was I creating this business, it went global in 4 months. And the 2 weeks come down after that, I was still having an identity crisis. It was like I was cutting off the artist. To lean into this business felt like I was saying goodbye to my identity. to the artist. And we had a lot of car conversations, me and my brother. There were a lot of tears. And he said to me, when you get past this, this will be your story. It's hard. And I said, yes, it's hard. Can you help me? I need help. It's such a big, it just felt like such a big thing that as the 8-year-old me who thought she would end up in Hollywood, to acknowledge that Hollywood looked very different. And I thought, I still am an artist. I
Of course
still
you are.
will write that comedy show. I cannot wait. But I want this business to work in line with the specific artistic adventures that I want to pursue.
At the top of the story of your journey, or even the conversation, actually, you said you are here to bring joy. Is that your purpose? Is that the reason for Jacinda Patty's being?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I had a conversation with somebody about, my life, and it's so funny how dating actually influences this, the growing of everything, right? And a guy, how lovely, on I think it was our first date, said to me, he said, "You make people great." And I said, "But I want to be great." And I think I was so stuck with Hollywood and being great, wanting to be great, that my superpower is actually helping others be great.
Yeah. What I heard in your story was probably quite maybe similar or common with people who are performers or actors, and that is this desire to have that recognition from others.
Mm,
And you constantly got through various ways and means on the journey that recognition, whilst the audience recognition was what you wanted, but from the system, from the institutions, from,
my
the government,
family. Yeah.
sometimes that wasn't what you wanted. And then I think all of us, there's part of all of us that needs that recognition, the validation that we're on
Mm,
path, that we're doing what we're here to do. And what I love about your story and who you are, Jacinda, is, and hopefully the listeners can really now get why I was so excited about having you on the podcast, is a creative person like yourself, a performer, someone who goes through that kind of a journey, has a very different life experience to someone who finishes school, goes to university, gets the job, gets a mortgage, and just stays on that linear path. There's not a lot of expression and experience compared to someone who throws out the rule book on the expected life pattern and says, I'm going to live from my heart and my soul.
mhm.
And what I see, and this is an absolute compliment to you, is that you've literally lived from your souls and from your joy and your passion.
Mhm.
And for someone else listening to this who had more of the other life, the more linear life, I bet they're listening to this going, boy, wow, if only I had just a glimpse of that. Because I believe we're all here as humans. We're here to become the best versions of ourselves. And we only get there when we experience and we go to the edges of our soul. And I feel that you have demonstrated that through your lived experience. And it doesn't matter that you're in the business world and not on the stage anymore. You've grown, you've had all these experiences.
Mhm.
The thing that's really important is, are you on purpose? And I feel the answer is absolutely 100% yes.
I am in meetings with my clients now, and we haven't even got to the performing part of the the process. And, they get to the end of the 2-hour session and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Jacinda, today was awesome." I'm like, "What did I do?" Like, I I'm it's just everything I believe. It's my soul. It is my soul. It is that 8-year-old. They are sitting in a meeting with an 8-year-old dreamer. And, as I said, I'm not oblivious to the fact that some people don't have the luxury to be dreamers. And I'm also not saying that the linear path is wrong, but for so long to choose not to be linear, I felt like an outcast
Mm.
and almost like I shouldn't speak up or I shouldn't talk or I shouldn't be happy with my life choices. Um, or why would you let your daughter become an artist? Like, my dad says to me every year, "Have you grown?" Still now. Have you grown? Have you grown? Have you improved from where you were this time last year?
Mm.
And I actually, as I said, it's been a realization, this new business, that it's been all of us, my help from my parents' wisdom, my brother's help firsthand. And my mum said to mum last year, I said, "Why am I doing another business? I'm just going to get a job and do one thing." I don't know, I think she was cooking. She looks over, she goes, "You can't. You wouldn't be able to." Is it
Mm.
really? Yeah, no.
Mm.
Okay. Good chat, mum. But it's I I think maybe I fought it myself. Like,
Mm.
that was my internal struggle.
Mm.
Um, and, as that teenager that knew who she was and what she wanted, I had to dumb it down because people, you know, friends or so-called friends or acquaintances didn't like that I was confident in myself. I got, people didn't like me because I had curly hair. People didn't like me because I had tan skin. People didn't like me because I had a butt. Like, people didn't like me because I had like top lip. I was like, why? This is just me. Yeah. And that's what, like, I was like, that's what you get for being joyful and an entertainer. You are out in
Mm.
the open with the ability to be judged and questioned.
Mm.
And
That's a
yeah,
risk we all take,
exactly.
when we express ourselves and we stand it, put ourselves out there. And for you, it's multiplied.
Yeah, as I said, really just this is can this be the final, like, fork in the road? I know within business there are multiple forks in the road that appear. I'm not an idiot. But I just this identity crisis that I felt when I woke up from that egg freezing was phenomenal. It was something I'd never felt before. I was like, again, sitting in that midway land. I'd produced a podcast, but am I an artist? I didn't want to stand on stage anymore. I got myself an acting agent, but now I'm doing the auditions and playing the waiting game again that I hated so much 12 years ago. But I've got so much to say and so much more to give, and I can teach people all these things. I'm sitting in this weird space where I'm personal training at the moment just to pay my bills. It's not where I want to be. I want to give more. And it was this identity crisis lasted for probably 9 months.
Mm.
And I think it was my brother, he turned around, he said, "Do you know what I want you to think?" He goes, "Think about who you've helped already and think about the people that are going to miss having your help in their lives that need it if you don't work past this hard bit. Think about them. Think about, they're my audience now. They're just in a different way.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
You'll always be an artist.
oh,
Always.
this,
It doesn't change. It doesn't.
yeah. But it is interesting because we do look at the world differently. We do
Mm,
process differently. I'm
mm,
so lucky that my mother was a teacher. She's like, oh, she's struggling to study. Here's some highlighters. Highlight stuff. It'll be easier.
mm.
You know,
Um,
whatever it may be. But
yeah.
I just think, and I meet people who innately have artist in them
Mm,
that haven't been given the opportunity or they haven't taken the opportunity to look at the world the way they want to look at the world. And yeah,
Jacinda, do you have days where it's difficult to connect in with that purpose? Do you have off days where you don't feel that you're on
I
purpose?
I have days where I crawl into my bed and I binge a TV show for 8 hours because in everything that I do, I'm out. I'm always outward facing with my family, with my friends. I'm the person that gets in the car to go to, I'm an extended auntie to like 50 kids around this country and the world. Like, if I don't feel joyful, I go and find my joy.
Mm,
And I'm always creating and trying. And i- when I don't, I've learnt that it does ebb and flow. And I've learnt that one of my friends has said to me, actually, I was producing Safety Banana for the first time, and I was living with her because I was between houses in Melbourne, and she came home one day, and I had like 5 different versions of the script around me, had my laptop open. I was in tears, bawling my eyes out because some guy had said some stupid text message to me, the guy I was dating at the time or whatever. I was sobbing on my knees. I couldn't move. It was that crux point, like that breaking point where I I'd done everything and all that was left to do was do it. But at that point, it was so early on in my journey, I didn't trust that space. And that's probably the space where the joy leaves and the fear engulfs you.
mm.
She came in, got me off the floor, closed the laptop, and said, you have to trust that I've watched you do the work that you need to do. It won't be anything but bad. It will be good. And then you can make it better. And she said to me, she repeats to me later, you always get it done. So now I've learned that when the joy doesn't exist, I crawl into my hole and I do what I need to do.
Mm,
And I don't force the productivity. In actual fact, I try, and when I'm having, like, at the moment this week, I'm doing my website and producing a new podcast and different things, and, um, you know, there's and then I'm coming on other podcasts and whatever. Um, I've created space around my working times that allow me to have those lapses
mm.
where I'm not outwardly giving joy or feeling joy, and I'm, you know, say, like,
Are
my
you
brother,
regenerating? Like, are you kind of like
you go in
just
and you re-solar
keeping?
up.
Yeah, yeah,
You gotta you
yeah.
gotta because I get my energy from other people. I am like, if I am with somebody and they are distraught, I am distraught. It is exhausting. It is stupid. It's exhausting. So being out all the time, you have to go in. And I think even after this week, of so many outward things that I'm doing. I also help my brother with his business now, and he's learnt, because one of his flatmates actually was like me, and she would crawl into a hole and just hug her dog and regroup. And he was like, "Oh, I get it." And I was like, "Yeah." So he calls me now sometimes and I'm like, "I've had a lot of outward things, can't talk to you. I can discuss slide decks with you tomorrow." Like, whatever it is. And like, I've gotten better at articulating where I am in my process and also not hating myself
Mm.
for knowing that I will get it done. And with the ebb, there is the flow.
Yeah.
And it is much more comforting and a better, the growth of this business, Command Your Presence, it has been a much more peaceful journey to create it, because I have been so in tune with who and what and when
Mm.
and how I do things.
I've got a couple of more questions, and then I've just looked at the time. We do have to wrap things up. So, what would you say to others who are on the path of trying to search for that, knowing, or that the meaning, their purpose? What would you say to them as a piece in terms of, advice? How can they get there? What could they do if they're a little bit lost? Maybe they're on that linear path and they just haven't tapped into it.
The biggest thing is trying, you know, you have to try things. You have to try things to know if you like them. You have to try things to know if you don't like them. And, I wouldn't have, I never thought I was a producer, but in actual fact, that is my sole existence, which is great, which is funny given the center of attention that I like to be. So it actually makes a lot of sense, but it's, it's, it's that, turn fear into excitement. I do everything so freaking scared, but I'm so used to jumping off that cliff that I encourage you, start small. But you're not going to find, or you're not going to deviate from your linear path if you don't start trying. And you don't have to be me doing backflips like into the abyss, which is where I am oddly most comfortable. But it you have to believe in yourself. And I think I always know that if I really, really need to or want to, if I have to, I can go and get that job and that income and that security if I need it. But I I'm happy to live like a non, lavish life, to have the ability to have tried all these things. I'm rich in many other ways that money cannot buy half the experiences I have had. So I encourage you to just try.
Yeah.
And if it's not that thing, then you've tried. At least you know you've tried.
Love it. Just try. Thank you for that. What does the next year to 2 years look like for you? Do you ever look into the future and sort of say, "Oh, I'd like to be there," or do you just completely live in the moment and go, "Let's just, experience life completely fully today"?
I think 18-year-old Jacinda who joined dance college, had a 5-year plan, had a plan, thought, I am going to plan the arts. We still can't plan the arts. Government freaking bodies can't even plan the arts. I I did used to think ahead. And I think something that is very poignant in my journey, I lost a really good friend of mine when I was 24. And she was the most beautiful ballerina with the most Australian ochre accent that you will ever. You think I have joy? She was next level. At 24, when you're trying to get to Hollywood and being on a stage and having this career means so much to you, when somebody is taken from you because they were blindsided in an accident, in a motorcycle accident, literally murder, your life changes. I wouldn't say it's not, it doesn't sit with me. It used to sit with me quite, actually it did, it I think influenced the next 5 years of my life as a career, because I used to live with my heart on my sleeve. When that happened, I threw my heart so far out in front of me that I didn't care. It didn't matter. Come and get it. And not only that, nothing mattered. Unless you were half a meter in front of me, I didn't care. And I had amazing people around me, again, amazing support to get through my journey of what far out was a horrible thing for her family to go through. But, she was one of my top 5. You know how you have a big life decision? She's one of the top 5. I called 5 friends when I had to make a decision. And when your left arm is taken from you and you the fifth of your heart that, influences you so much because they get you. It 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 changed. It changed me. It changed the way I look at the world. It changed the way I looked at what mattered. And I think for a year and a half, I lived in the clouds, in that space of if you weren't half a meter in front of me, I didn't care. I finished my personal training certificate through sobbing tears. I became a puppeteer, and the whole time I was a puppeteer, it was giving me that fix of performing and feeling. I lost feeling.
Mm.
So the 5-year plan that I did have once when I was an 18-year-old didn't exist. It vanished. I now don't live a meter in front of me, but I don't care what's beyond 6 months, say. And that would be a stretch, because I trust that whatever will happen, and if I'm doing what I'm doing now, and if I'm putting hard work in, whatever will happen. I'm literally creating a business that doesn't need me to be in one specific location so that I can continue to live my life wherever it takes me. I've never wanted the white picket fence. It's kind of the way I describe it. I've never wanted it. I want a family. I love my family. I love my culture. But if you make plans, you set yourself up for disappointment. If you make 5-year plans, you set yourself up for disappointment. But it's not to say I'm not frugal. Like I'm good with money. I do the important things. Anyway, I taught my friend who's a banker how to budget. A struggling artist taught her friend who's a banker with a shit ton of money how to budget.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know goals. I speak in goals. I speak in achievements. I speak in dreams and universe and just
but not the time
trusting.
frame.
Not the time, which, to be fair, now that I'm thinking about my uterus, is stressful. But at the same time, It's kind of not.
Mm.
It's there will come a time when, maybe or you know, whatever happens, but yeah, there's no time restraint on the life I live.
I love that. Well, yeah, I mean, having lived in both different spaces before, I can heartily say that, trying to live with a plan is really tricky because that's not how life works. I learned years ago, actually, I saw it written as graffiti on a, I think it's like a little bridge out at St Kilda in Melbourne. Someone had written there or scratched into it, when you make plans, God laughs.
Mhm.
And that stayed with me ever since I saw that so many years ago, because there have been plenty of times where I've made a plan and then it just, like you with getting your eggs frozen, it's just like, no, that's not the way to go. So I think the message, the takeaway, hopefully for our listeners here is just be you, live your life,
Mm.
find what brings you joy, and take those little steps. If you are on a linear path, take those little steps as much as you can and just try.
We have a way that we describe it now, me and my dance friends. We say that we've had love jobs.
Yeah.
We've had love jobs. And not only, as personal trainers or Pilates instructors or physiotherapists, we've all gone to do, you know, other
Mm.
work. It's still a love job. And some people don't ever get to experience
Yeah.
this love job.
I
And
love that.
it is like, everyone talks about do this so that you can set people like, you're working on a Sunday. I'm like, I have been running my own show for 15 years. I work when the juices are flowing. Like,
Yeah.
but I work so that I can take 2 years out of my life. I work so that I can go on a month holiday whenever the hell I want. I've it's
Mm.
yeah, it's that, I I I don't work. I am living. Like,
Mm.
I'm living within my love job. And that is when we realize that, for all the uh mishaps that the arts and the dance industry have given us, our things that we've had to unlearn, um, it gifted us the joy of being able to do what we love. And for that, we all had a moment and we were very thankful that we've been able to experience it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you absolutely are an expression and an example of living on purpose, being activated. You're on your mission. And that being on your mission does not mean you know what the path ahead is. And hopefully the listeners can get this from everything that you've said. It's such a perfect example. You don't know what tomorrow brings,
No.
but just be in tune with it today and just, wow. So refreshing talking to you and learning from you, listening to you, and just sharing space with you. It's been great. Really, really
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. I'm laughing because of the word manifesting.
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh, I've been doing that my whole life."
Yeah.
And with these phrases that are coined at the moment, I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, that's how I live. Oh, people need to learn." Oh, wow.
What, everyone else doesn't know how to do that? Oh, I thought that was just what we all did.
I had a flatmate once, she goes, "Don't say it out loud because whatever you say happens." And I was like, "Welcome to my world." But it was, yeah, it just makes me laugh. It just makes me laugh. It absolutely makes me laugh. Right. And, don't listen to please do yourself a favor. Don't listen to the glorified version of, what we're saying. Just take time and do it yourself.
Mm,
Whatever,
yeah.
I've
Be you.
manifested for years. I didn't know it was called manifesting. It's just whatever. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Love that. Tell me, how can people get in contact with you if you want them to? Jacinda, of course.
I always like new friends. And I like telling my new friends that they're now my old friends. You can find me, Jacinda Patty, at Jacinda Patty on LinkedIn. At Jacinda Patty on Instagram. You can find me Jacinda Patty on LinkedIn. And that's probably the best place to see what's going on in my world and what's coming next. You can hit up pattycakesproductions.com. That will show you, I guess, the history that is the what got me to here, those shows, who I am as an artist, and keep an eye out for Command Your Presence. That is also on socials and LinkedIn. Soon to be a website when I find that energy. And yeah, but if you follow Jacinda Patty,
Wonderful.
You'll see what's coming next.
Yeah, we'll have all your handles and links in the show notes below. Jacinda, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being you. And I just want to honor you as who you are, the journey you've been on, the light that you bring, and the joy that you give to others. It's just so, so refreshing. It's beautiful. And that's why we connected. And that's why you're here. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak so freely about everything.
You're welcome. It's just been an absolute joy. I'm going to look forward to listening to this again. And I hope our listeners have really gotten so many things from this like I have. And wishing you all the best. I can't wait to have another conversation with you. So
looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mission Activated. If today's conversation resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Remember, your mission matters. When you live on purpose, not only do you transform your own life, but you inspire others to do the same. Until next time, stay aligned, keep activated. I'll see you then.